We're so excited that you've joined us for today's live stream presented by rvtravel.com. Today's program will begin shortly. While we allow some time for others to join, we want to take care of a few housekeeping items. Everything presented in this live stream is true to the very best of our knowledge and experience, but we are human. Occasionally, we might be wrong. We don't want you spending thousands of dollars simply because we said something was good or fixing something according to what we suggested. Do your research, check your owner's manual, and seek assistance from your vetted and trustworthy certified RV technician.
So during our live stream, it's only going to get better if you participate. We'd love to hear from YOU. So while you're tuning into the show, please let us know what kind of rig you have, where you currently reside, if you're a part-timer, if you're a full-timer, and most importantly, what technical questions can we help you with? Feel free to submit your questions throughout the show. You can even start that right now.
During today's live stream, we may show you what we like to call cool tools. These are tools and gadgets that we actually use and we believe will be helpful to you. If you are interested in learning more about these products, please see the YouTube description box for more information.
During today's live stream, we will be doing a giveaway. To be included in the drawing, be sure to include a hashtag on the screen in your comments during the live stream. So let's get started.
Hey, this is Zach and Dustin here with Talkin' RV Tech, and we want to welcome you. Dave will be joining us shortly. One thing I want to throw out right off the bat, I know it said it in the beginning, but make sure you guys are adding that hashtag mug. You want to win that fancy mug there.
Coffee only tastes better in that mug. And we see that Larry Lucas is with us today. So says, let's start this rodeo.
I think the best way to start it, I don't know where you're from, Larry, but it's cold where we're at here in California. I know that some people may not think that that's cold here, but it does get cold. Let's talk about furnaces and winterization, huh?
Yeah. And then we got a welcome, Robert.
We got these chats, hashtag mug. There you go.
There we go. Cool.
Winterization. So winterization is something that people tend to have a lot of questions about because, hey, what am I doing? Am I putting antifreeze in my lines? Am I blowing out the lines? And what do I need to do? And it really depends upon where you're at in the longevity of where you are. If it's cold constantly where you are, you're, below freezing temperatures for long periods of time, and you're storing it, you are going to need to use winterization products like antifreeze through the lines and stuff. Here, when it gets down to the low 30s and stuff for a couple of days, it's not necessary. Blowing out the lines is really something to start with.
Looks like Larry's in Oregon.
I live in Oregon. Our new Opus OP15 pop-up trailer is parked beside our home, trying to find something to keep the humidity down inside. Thinking of the plug-in dehumidifiers ideas. Yeah. You can. I find that any of the dehumidifier pellets or anything seem to do pretty good. It's kind of a pain in the butt to constantly have to go out there and dump them and put new ones in and things like that. But you kind of have to do that with a dehumidifier anyways, because it's going to fill the container full of water. So it's whatever you feel like doing. Usually a plug-in dehumidifier obviously has to be plugged into 110 all the time. Yeah. So it makes it so you have to maintenance your batteries more, making sure you're keeping up on them. Britt says, hello from Hartwell, Georgia.
Hey, Brett.
Howdy.
Got vintage campers. All right.
Northern California, not quite full time, but we go a lot, mainly in our vintage trailer.
Very cool.
Welcome to the stream.
I think that's Paul.
Possibly.
Yeah. So we
hashtag. Yep. Make sure you get them in there. Make sure you get them in. Yep. 2022 Jayco J-Flight.
All right.
I'm a fan of Jayco's.
Arizona hashtag mug.
Hashtag mug. Wondering the best oil grease to put on fifth wheel. I go down some dusty roads. It's really dependent upon what you're trying to do. So like when we go through and we perform a service on a fifth wheel hitch itself, we're using dry lube or something similar, making sure that we are not using something that's going to cause a lot of buildup, especially since you're going down those roads.
Or some duster.
Yeah, we have, or back in the day, a lot of people, before they were using like slick discs and stuff like that, were just piling in grease on the plate itself and in the head. And it actually ends up being worse for the system. So keeping it clean, dry lubes usually work really good. And actually, if you follow through with like, B&W or Demco, any of your main hitch brands, a lot of times they'll tell you what kind of grease that they recommend you use. So go ahead and follow that out as well. Krista, living in Arizona, we love to winter camp. Do we need to winterize at all as long as we stay under freezing during the daytime temps? If you're constantly moving and using stuff, it's usually not an issue. It's when you're, hey, I'm going to leave it stored and it's going to sit there at a freezing temperature for weeks at a time. Yeah, you got to get that stuff out of there, at least get the lines emptied. That might be something to think about. I mean, if you're dry camping, let's say, at the end of the night, it might be a good idea to open those low point drains for just the lines themselves while the unit's not under pressure. Get that stuff out of there.
Yeah. So if you're not plugged in at a campground, or if you're not using like a heated water hose, or exact same, make sure you shut off your water pump, go out, relieve the pressure, drain the low point drains, let all the water get out of the system so that nothing can freeze up. It depends on the coach, really. Is it a 4-season coach or is it a stick and 10 coach? It's like, we have to call them out here.
Yes. Some units, they have pads underneath that keep them warm. Some of them have actually like ducting that leads down where the water lines are. So you turn on the furnace and it's heating everything up underneath. So you don't really have to worry about it. It's, what kind of coach do you have, right? Terry Haynes, 34 Arctic Fox fifth wheel, San Diego area. Welcome. Right. And next one is, of course, the hashtag mug. Make sure you got that on there. Living in Arizona, we got that one. And there's Paul. Yeah, you're right. Paul. Welcome, Paul. Lube plate. Yep.
Lube plate.
The slick discs are well worth it. You don't really have to lube the top plate or anything anymore. You throw one on, they're cheap. They wear down, they break. You buy another one. They're $15 usually or under
or less. Yeah.
Make sure you get the right size though. There are a few different sizes.
10 and 12.
Yeah, make sure you measure across the bottom of the pin box. You want that thing to be perfect for that. Mm-hmm. Hello from Naples, Florida.
Florida, all right.
And you're back, Michael.
Yeah,
all right.
Michael, yeah.
Welcome back.
Hey, there's Dave.
There he is.
Wow.
The man himself.
My computer had summer oil in it, and I had to change it.
We carved that with RV technical difficulties.
Oh man, I tell you, had a live stream that was supposed to go at 4 o'clock, and it just buffered, and I've never had a problem with this before. So it's a little frustrating.
We were coming for your job.
I know. I got my
all the glory.
I got my little iBook out here, and I was able to get the next office internet Wi-Fi. Mine's not working for whatever reason.
Well, welcome, Dave. We've already started going through with. I think we're down to Terry Hayes right now.
Okay.
It says my front and rear cap are starting to fade because I live on a hill. It's difficult to understand what to do.
Yeah, it's really difficult and unsafe to do it myself. What do you think about painting the caps or putting a wrap over them? Right now, I feel like wraps are really popular. I don't feel like it's gotten to the point yet where it's crazy expensive, so it's something to think about. There was a good span of units, 2010 to 2015 or so, as well as some of them now that were having issues with like paint, and they constantly faded. You could wet sand them, buff them, bring them back, and then 6 months later it was the same exact way. And the only option was to go through and actually paint the cap.
So there's an alternative. So Terry, there's another alternative too. Like we used to take and get a lot of the Class A's that would come in with the radiuses that were all faded out, messed up. Almost nowadays, you can get any color of like a bed liner. So you can get like a spray-on bed liner. You can get a roll-on bed liner with some special applicators. And if you tape it all up, if you don't mind like having a hard line, or if you have a stopping point where you can break it like a decal or something like that, you can go and get different colors or have, color matched bed liner material made that's rolled on. So just like painting the wall in your house, and you can do that as well. Sometimes people will do it down low because they're trying to prevent like the rocks from chipping the body. Or we do it on the lower front ends of the Class Cs and stuff as well. So that's another option between wrapping it.
Yeah.
Wrapping it's a good idea.
It's really dependent on you. What do you want to do? Some people, they want that paint. They want it to be as close to factory. Do it. Some people, hey, if you wrap it, you can put whatever you want on there. If you like NASCAR,
RV travel.
Throw NASCAR. You want to put RV travel on there, RV Repair Club, California RV Specialist, slap it on the front.
Yeah.
I think you're right. And then I see a lot of people doing the wraps, especially out in this area. And you guys get beating sun out there, but it's a lot cheaper just to do that front wrap that's, that's part of it rather than paint, because paint sometimes is hard to know where to stop.
Yeah.
And you can get these sign companies anymore here that wrap cars all the time. And, it's $300, and you will get more than that back if you go to sell that rig and you got something that's not completely faded in the front.
And something to talk about with paint, a lot of people don't know when it comes to like doing repairs or things like that, a spot this big has to be done this big, like it's a lot. So,
and then you're always going to see if you paint it, if you missed a spot or something didn't work out, or you did
single stage paint versus a dual paint.
So in California, we have to use water base.
Yeah.
Versus in, like David from Ohio. So
you probably use good stuff.
The lacquers and all
use anything.
All the good stuff.
And the difference is that out in California, you've got so many people that are painting. Out here, we only have 18 people that live here. So we don't, not that much gets the ozone. So, and what a lot of people don't realize.
They all live in the same RV, right?
Yeah. It's a double wide. But I have a friend of mine that works construction, and he runs the projects building Taco Bells, and he elected, instead of staying in a motel, to get an RV and go to the site and live in that whole thing, and just absolutely loves it. But like 6 months later, he called me up and he said, "Man, my whole front cap is just fading like crazy." And I said, yeah, that's part of you got to understand is that when they make that cap, they got a mold, and they start with either fiberglass, cut fiberglass, shooting it into the mold, or layered fiberglass. But then they got the gel coat. That's that clear coat on the far side. So you can't just paint it with any kind of paint and have it stay and look good. So that's a challenge.
Yeah. Looks like we got Les from Texas. So #mug right on.
Get those hashtags in.
Yeah.
Cool.
Carol from
Arkansas.
Welcome, Carol. Terry.
How do you apply Dicor to the inside of a solar panel bracket? I did use butyl tape under the solar panel brackets.
So he's got the reverse brackets.
I'm not 100% sure how you mean it. So usually, like when I go through and I put on a solar panel, I'll put putty under the foot, and then I'll screw through the putty, and then I seal the front face, and then I seal behind it. When I pump enough self-leveling Dicor into there, it'll fill that whole foot. Things you can do now is Dicor makes a butyl tape like in a caulking
gun,
and you can fill that underneath, and you can lay the Dicor right on top of that. If you don't cut the nozzle of the Dicor tube, too low where you can't like reach behind the panel to seal it, that might be part of the issue. But
another trick you can do, depending on which way the bracket is, if it's an L bracket and you're bolting it from the outside in, or if it's reversed and it's on the inside, you could have always like submerged that bracket in the Dicor or putty, either one, or the butyl, and then secured it down. So then it's kind of embedded into it, and then just fill up over the top of it, like Zach's saying. So
I just pulled out. I've got a solar panel here, but it does not have the brackets.
Well, I'm thinking that his is. How some of them, Dave, they have like, some of them have like an expansion clip now that clips into the side of them, and then some of them have like an actual bolt that goes through into the panel itself.
Yep.
I'm just wondering which way the L is for his bracket, if it's an exterior kick out or if it's inside, and to hide it underneath of it.
All right.
Well, and really, when you install that, it's got a little channel around the entire ridge, and you slide it into that channel. That bracket should lift that solar panel up off
the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be up above.
So you can wash underneath of it.
You should be able to get in there and just level fill that bracket with and you might have to get one of those extensions. You've got that gun, and some of those guns have a little nozzle on the end of it that'll get you in further. But they shouldn't be so far in, and it should not be flush to the roof, because then what's going to happen is it's going to run or rub on that roof material, and it'll eventually, if it's a rubber roof especially, it's going to tear that rubber.
Yeah.
So look at that bracket and how you got it set up. You might want to get different brackets too, but if you already put it in with butyl tape, you're probably not going to do that.
Yeah. All right. Carol, question. I have airlift load lifter 5000 Ultimate plus air springs with internal bumpers. Stainless steel rear axle airlift wireless one compressor system for air helper springs.
I hope she didn't pay for them by the word.
When connecting the fifth wheel to the truck, should I airlift PSI to be set before or after the fifth wheel is lowered? You should follow what the manufacturer states. I want to say a lot of them say to do it after you go through and you hook it up. Yeah. Because the pressure is going to be different. So a lot of those units that are on like the self-leveling air compressors and all that, when you go through and you hook up and you load up with pressure, a lot of times they'll sit there and purge a whole bunch of air out beforehand as soon as they start taking the load, and then you level them out to where they are. Yeah. But follow whatever your book states.
Well, yeah, and typically we've got a local guy that's got a toy hauler Raptor, and he's got the air springs in the backside, and he lets all the air out of his springs before he connects, and then after he disconnects, and that brings the back end of the truck down, so he doesn't have to get the fifth wheel so high up in the air. And the main thing is getting it level. And keep in mind that air springs cannot increase your towing capacity or your axle capacity. The only thing it's designed to do is to enhance those leaf springs that are probably not used to carrying the weight that they say they can.
Yeah. We do a lot of the sumo springs.
Well, and I mean, think about it too. Like you go through and you set that bag to 65 pounds or whatever, and then you put all that weight on. That pressure is jumping up because you're eliminating that space by putting all the pressure on the back.
Yeah. The whole thing is to make sure it gets level. If they were set up properly in the beginning. Yep.
Charles says, is the T8 spray good to spray to put on my Super Glide hitch? I'm not sure what T8 spray is, so I don't know.
Yeah. I've never heard of that either, but I would check. You've got a Super Glide hitch, so fifth wheel hitch. Whether it's B&W or whoever, most of those recommend a lithium grease. Yeah, so get a hold of Super Glide themselves.
Ask them. Yeah.
A lot of those newer versions of the Super Glide, they have that Teflon plate between the actual slider bars and the head too, and so you don't have to do a ton of lubricating on them as it is. It's not like the old ones that were metal on metal and you had to.
Well, they make something like a Super Dog or a Dog Disc or exactly what
we were talking about the slick disc before you got on, actually.
Okay, it was the Teflon one or plastic. That's what this guy uses on his too. And before he did that, he just constantly had issues with it catching and moving the rig, and now it's just like.
I wonder if that T8 is almost like a PTFE, like a Teflon spray lube, like a dry spray lube.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could be, but I'm not sure without looking it up.
See if I can do a Google search on the other ones here, and you guys go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to Google search just see what.
All right, so 19 Clutch 69 says wraps aren't durable. It depends.
It depends on the quality.
Yeah, they make different kinds of vinyl materials for doing wraps and stuff. Eventually, over time, it's going to fade just like anything else.
Just like decals, they make like a 3-year, 5-year, 7-year decal, and it's basically thicker material. And then we just did some decals for a unit here a while back, and they actually take and have a clear coat product that they could put over the top of the decal. But what I think it extended it to 10 years.
It's or something like that. But even using something like 303 or something like that and putting it on the wrap is going to preserve it.
It's going to protect it. Yeah.
Les, have you used BioSheed as a Boeing development lubricant? No, I'm BioSheed. I'm assuming it's BioShield, maybe. I don't know. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, and one of the things that's you see in the industry, especially when it's doing so well like it is right now in the market, 600,000 units were sold last year. You see all kinds of products jumping in that, were in the trucking industry or, the commercial grade industry or something like that. And for somebody like Dustin or me or whatever to, we've got the ones we've used and we like them and we trust them.
Mm-hmm.
We know that they work, and, you're always going to find something that comes in the market that it's wow, and so it's hard to keep up with that stuff. And sometimes, I don't even try. It's like, I know that this stuff works, and, all of a sudden here's somebody that jumps in that hasn't been in the industry ever. And now all of a sudden they're an RV product and an expert. I'm not saying they're not good. I just say that I've got a lot of respect for the ones that we've used and we know are good.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So last one that was just up there was Michael from Pensacola, Florida. Welcome to the stream.
Yep. Make sure you use #mug.
Yep, #mug to win that mug. Let's see. You want to read this one, Dave?
Sure. Had 3 100 amp hour Battleborn lithium batteries and 3 100-watt solar panels on the top. Thinking of running a DC to DC setup for my tow rig, a 2017 Ford F350 6.7 diesel. Equipment recommended. I personally recommend the XBN 360.
Right behind you. There it is.
I got the DC to DC converter here somewhere.
Yeah, but he says he has 3 100 amp hour batteries.
He's talking about
right. What he's talking about is that when your alternator from your tow vehicle is going to provide a charge back into your trailer, and you could also get a drain back to that. So a DC to DC converter, from what I understand, is going to help to regulate what's going back there, so you don't ruin the lithium and you don't drain your tow vehicle. And
so, if Expion makes one, I'm unfamiliar with that one. Victron, of course, I've installed the Victron DC to DC. There's another company we just put one in on an LTV here that's currently on the yard. I've drawn a blank on the name. I want to say it's like Brothers or something similar. Yeah.
Well, now that you bring it up, Victron is the choice of Keystone and Battleborn. They did a lot of research with that. So I would say that either the XBN 360 or the Victron.
Yeah, and you got it. Yeah, the one that we installed a Lithionics, big, huge 360 amp hour battery, and they wanted to use that Brothers one. There you go.
So it's just a pretty easy mount.
Looks like my amps I used to put in my car when I was a kid.
I was gonna say, I bet you California guys probably had those bass amps that were.
Hey, there was nothing wrong. We had 18s and 22-inch speakers in the back of all of our mini trucks back in the day.
Yeah, but we had CB radios. We had CB radios and cow horns.
We had CB radios too, but.
All right. This one's from Britt. 2020 Cedar Creek Hathaway. I'm sure this topic has been hashed out many times. What is your recommendation and safest way to jack up a fifth wheel to change or remove a tire? I'm planning to remove the tires to check the brake wear. My dealer said to use the hydraulic leveling system to raise the unit. The RV manufacturer states the jack unit via the frame nearest the tire being removed. Others have suggested to jack the unit with a bottle jack on or near the axle U-bolt. What is your recommendations?
But have we all done that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you get in contact with anybody who puts the jacks on the coach, they say don't do that. And you're going to get hurt one day doing that. So please do not do that.
Well, you're going to bend the jack or the plate of the jack because it's a plate generally bolted to the frame side, and it's not that beefy.
It's not that beefy, yeah.
No.
When we do it, I mean, we're lucky enough to have like a forklift. So we lower it down, put jack stands underneath the rear of the frame, raise the front, put jack stands underneath the front of the frame so we can take the unit all the way off the ground.
Quickly.
Yeah, doing it evenly and against the frame is probably the safest way. What do you think, Dave?
Oh, I agree. And what I hate to keep pushing people back to the manufacturer of different things, but every RV manufacturer builds their unit differently. They have different framework, they have different stress points, they have different areas, and you can't just generically say put it on this spot every single time, because they will have recommend places. They do not recommend the axles, because you will bend the axles back. It's supposed to have a little bit of a canter in it, and you can bend those U-bolts, all that kind of stuff. So there is a place on that frame somewhere that they recommend that it's going to be stronger than the other one.
Yeah. That's something that our industry needs to do different. At some kind of a level, whether it be the RV industry, RVDA, but they need to tag or mark a lift point where that should be done at.
They do that on cars with, especially cars and not trucks or Jeeps or anything, but they have the pinch weld. And a lot of them, they have a space on the pinch weld that's separated and says, hey, put your scissor lift here. Somebody just should do that on RV frames.
Well, maybe they should do it like the old days. And you guys probably don't remember, but I bet Chuck does, that the old cars used to have slots in the bumpers. And then you would bring the jack out and it had a little hook.
It would hook
into the bumper. So we're gonna have to put those on the front and the back of our RVs.
You had to use a bar to move that?
Yeah.
You put the bar into the jack, into the foot, and it was archaic. And then we used to shoe horses too. So that was even a different kind.
While you were doing it at the same time, right?
Exactly. So what's the next
That's why you guys back east are so,
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Terry's back again. Terry says, I purchased the caulk gun that you recommended, an excellent product.
Awesome.
I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
I like that caulking gun. I mean, it's kind of like painting, you're either good at it or you're not. I enjoy going out there in the yard, turning on the music and just, I call it frosting my coach, and it's just a stress reliever for me. But having a good caulking gun, whether you're on the roof and you're going through tube after tube of Dicor or Alpha Sealant or whatever brand you're using, Secoflex or whatever, it depending on if it's cold outside or it's hot outside, some of those tubes are so aggressive. By the time you're done, you're like, oh, yeah. So it's nice to have a good caulking gun.
Yep. So it says, my solar panel has a bolt hole, so my brackets are bolted. So he probably has, like on the Go Powers, the C is channeled and it's got like a Z bracket and it gets bolted with like a little 10 millimeter, 11 millimeter bolt. And then it has a screw that you put in. So same thing I said, you can put whatever you want underneath of it, embedded in Dicor, anything. And then when you seal the whole top of that foot, as long as you didn't cut that tip too small, you should be able to get behind there and seal around that thing, no problem.
Okay. Yeah, the one I have here is a Zamp. And okay. Yeah. If you can get in there and do that. Okay, our Sumo Springs, all they are cracked up to be. I see Winnebago's now offering them as an option. Winnebago's offering them on the motorized or on the travel trailers?
I think both.
Okay. That surprises me because Winnebago has really never been a big aftermarket.
So I know the president of Sumo Spring was really going after the manufacturers.
Okay.
It's made a huge difference. I mean, we put them on all the time on pickup trucks, travel trailers, and motorized units.
Yeah, we install them way more on pickup trucks and motorized units than we do travel trailers. The travel trailer version of it is relatively newer compared to the other stuff. I don't think I've ever had a customer come back and be like, that wasn't worth the money.
No,
they're.
Well, we did, we have Carol that is our resident veterinarian and cat lady, and she bought a Ford F-350 on a Newmar out in North Carolina, I believe, or something like that. And then she moved out to Palm Springs, and she was scared to death of that ride. She thought she was going to die. It was, of course, it's a 39-foot Newmar on an F-53 gas chassis, and it's that is an elephant on roller skates to start with. And so she went out and researched, and she looked at liquid springs, but it's
Really
$20,000 or more. And she ended up putting sumo springs, and I don't know, she had quite a list of stuff.
Yeah, I remember. I thought it was true track or what.
She was not satisfied with it.
Yeah.
But there, and one of the things too is I told her to go weigh the coach, and she was just absolutely shocked at how much it weighed. So she took a whole bunch of stuff out of it, trying to lighten it up. But I personally think that when you start getting into units that are over 35 feet long, maybe even 34 feet long, that gas chassis is just, it's on the edge.
Yeah.
And some people love it. This guy that I'm working on his Thor out here, he's got a 37-foot Thor triple slide or maybe quad slide, and it's actually 38 feet. We call it, it's a 37-foot model, but it's 37 feet, 24 inches. Which, but he doesn't mind. And I drove it back up from about a 2-hour drive, and it's like, wow, this thing is you gotta drive it. I mean, you really have to pay attention. And he said, you know what, I'm not doing that 3,000-mile glory trip. I'm not going to Alaska. I'm just locally, and I'm not going to spend another $70,000 for diesel.
And that's something too. A lot of people, when they buy these units, especially ones who, hey, I've had this small unit or a trailer or something, then they go and they buy this giant unit. They expect it to drive like a car, or, hey, it doesn't drive like my old unit used to, or something. Yep. And then they run into a situation like that.
Yeah. So it looks like Larry Lucas, he says, by the way, thanks for recommending the Roadmaster Comfort Ride slipper spring system with shocks for the reflection.
Love the ride.
Love the ride enhancement. We've been doing those like crazy, 2 or 3 a week.
Yeah.
That system, Dave, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, but it's the slipper spring system. Mm-hmm. It basically it tells them that they're reducing the G forces and the vibration like by 80% in the coach. Okay. And then on average, they say they don't want to go too far because they don't know the different type of tires that consumers would buy, but they just guarantee that you'll get 25% more life out of your tires by adding that to a travel trailer or a fifth wheel. And they have it for, dual and triple axle coaches, and they're lifetime warranty on the springs and the shocks. So Larry, good job. I don't know if you installed it yourself or if somebody else did, but it's a good unit to have. And especially if you have a Swintech, if you have any Swintech slide outs, all the shaking and vibration, we go and we buy these units that are $50,000, $100,000 travel trailers or fifth wheels, and they put, what I call 1950, 60 technology underneath of them. They're putting very, $1,000, $500 worth of suspension underneath of it. So we always wonder, why everything's shaking and coming loose and falling apart is bad. It all starts with the suspension.
Yeah.
Okay. I just looked up to clarify. Gary Bunzer, late RV doctor, really liked the T9. It is BioShield. It's T9, not T8. So that's
okay.
That's where we, and you would think one letter off, but I did not recognize it. I do remember him talking about that many, many times. Rust and corrosion protector. I just came across the product here recently. I think we've talked about it a couple different times. Corrosion X, and they've got a Corrosion XD and a Corrosion X. And how I ran into this is I was researching on the decals, and I called Sharpline and I said, what do you guys recommend to put on decals? I know in the past, no waxing, none of the stuff, the UV stuff that's out there. And they said, well, we recommend that you clean them with a mild detergent like Dawn dish soap, nothing with little particulates in it. But then we recommend Reflex. I think it's called, is it? Rejects. Rejects. And they said that they've been doing tests. All these manufacturers usually have a testing ground somewhere where they got their product out and it's being baked in the sun and trying different materials and components. And he said, we've had our decals out there, and the rejects, it still allows them to breathe, and it doubled the life of the products. So I got in touch with the company, and that was one of their products. But then they also have Corrosion X and Corrosion X HD, And he said it is the best rust inhibitor you will ever find. It was invented for, I can't even remember. I did the research on it, but all this stuff kind of starts in either aerospace or major mining components, something like that. But what I did with this is I've got a friend that has a ICANN Renegade, a really expensive coach, and his steps would not work properly. And so I went over to take a look at him, crawled underneath, and I could not believe how rusty this couple $1 million coach was.
Yeah. We rebuilt a bunch of those.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, so I was talking to this guy about it. He says, well, take this Corrosion X HD. And he said, spray it on and just let it go off naturally. Don't wash it off or anything like that. And it's pretty goopy stuff, really. I mean, it's a little oily and stuff. But he just called me from California the other day because he went out there for the wintertime and he brought a unit into the shop and he cleaned out underneath because he hit the storm on the way out. And he says, the rust is gone.
Yeah, it eats
really?
It. And then reverses it.
Yeah. I want him to give me some pictures. So I sprayed it on my truck. I got a Silverado that's 2016, and right at in the wheel wells, you can see right at the frame and the springs, it's starting to surface rust in there because we got salt and all kinds of stuff out here in the Midwest, and it's 4, 5, 6 years old now, and I'm anxious to see what it did. I just did it the other day, so I'm anxious to see how well it works, but. Again, usually I don't jump on a new product real heavy, but when the decal manufacturer says to use this other stuff,
yeah,
I'm going to look into it. Let's look at it. So Terry says he uses a 60 amp Renogy DC to DC charger because it has higher amp settings than the Victron. Yeah, and that's the thing you're going to have to do and look at what alternator you have. You start getting into these Mercedes. They've got 2 alternators and they run like 250 amps, in those things. So you really have to be careful when you start looking at what your charging system will do.
You need to figure out what you actually need.
Yep, exactly.
Robert
says new motorized. And what was his previous question?
That was the Sumo Springs.
Okay. Oh, on the Winnebago.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, and Robert, I guess I do ask too, is it the dealer that's recommending this or is it straight from the factory? So, there are times where the dealership who's represented their Winnebago dealer says, oh, they're putting Sumo springs on everything. So, and it's a good spring. I don't think, sometimes you got to be careful when you start looking at aftermarket products that the dealers are going to put on that the manufacturer doesn't offer. And the reason they don't offer it is because it might void the warranty. But I don't think the Sumo springs do that.
I think the Sumo springs too are lifetime warranty as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into it. My brother still works inspection there, and my son-in-law is head of the specialty division. So we'll get some answers.
Yeah.
Terry says solar panels are not high enough to get the Dicor and gun under them.
So that's a bit strange. Unfortunately you may have to, and unless you already gooped the front, you may have to unscrew it, pull the panel up, and embed the foot in Dicor, and then just seal back up the top after you put it back down.
Yeah, I would say if you can take some pictures of it, if it's got a bolt hole, you should be able to take the bolt out and
raise the panel to get underneath
the panel. Get at the feet and then reattach on top of that. Somehow you had to have put those feet in with, you put butyl tape and you had to fasten the feet in, I'm assuming with screws. And, at that point and then if you put the panel together on top of it, you can't get at the feet. Well, at some point you had to be able to put screws in that feet. That's the point you should have put the self-leveling sealant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael says, is it my eyes or the questions on screen blurry? They don't look like it to us, but if you guys are having any kind of issues or anything like that, please let us know.
They look blurry now. They look great now. These old eyes. Vintage. Oh, hey, we got Paul with us here.
Yep.
I just talked with Paul yesterday. Paul runs Vintage Camper Trailers, and Dustin, he's going to come see you. He's in your area somewhere close by, and I talked to him quite a bit about weight distribution hitches, porpoising. We got some questions on that. Yeah. I have never really gotten it wrapped around my mind on how the weight distribution works, the hitch, literally the technical aspect of it. I just know it works. And it's like, so I tried a couple questions. I stood up on my dunk tank afterwards so I could get
there's so many different versions nowadays, from what they started out with. There's some really neat stuff out there.
Yeah. Well, I did.
He swears by the Sumo Springs for his camper with the cab over. I mean, they work great. A lot of our techs, even on their own personal trucks, they've added them to it. So on like a couple of guys got some Toyota Tundras and Toyota Tacomas and stuff like that, and some 4Runners and whatnot. They've all added them on their own personal vehicles because they like them so much.
I'll have to look at that. I do not like the ride of my Silverado. I got a 1500. It's 4-wheel drive. It does not have the Z package. The unit I had before had the Z package, and it drove like a dream. Yeah. But this one is just, and I don't like what Chevy's done to their trucks in the last few years. They're trying to make that 1500 look like a 3/4 ton or a ton. Yeah. They put they raised it first of all, and so I can't reach anything in the back bed of that stupid truck. So I got to carry a milk cart with me and kick it out. I feel like Danny DeVito in there. I got Jersey Mike's, I guess, don't I? But
Larry Lucas replied back when I brought up that topic about the suspension with the slide outs. He said, darn Swintech slide outs. He said, reflections in the shop right now with an installation tolerance problem under warranty. So it's we actually had Larry, a customer, come in today with a Vroom system that was just installed down in Arizona, and he paid, I think it was $3,500, and he brought it by. He's a customer of ours, but he took it down there. He was in the area, and they scheduled him and got him in, and so we got a chance to actually see that new system.
Yep.
And we're on their list to get set up as an authorized dealer and stuff for them, but
it's not there yet.
But it's not there yet. They're trying to do something with.
They got to send us out for training stuff. He's going to contact me back in January. One thing, because the unit's still new and under warranty, the Schwintex were having an issue. Lippert specifically was having an issue with the inverted rack style Schwintex systems, and they're replacing them. They were having so many problems that they have a rebuild kit piece for it that's pretty much an entire Schwintex, and they're sending them out and they're paying the labor and everything. So if you are having problems with the Schwintex, take it to your service centers, have them check it over and look at it, get the VO number and the RPO number off the thing and send it to Lippert, because if you do have an inverted system, if it's not failed now, it could definitely be failed, and you want to make sure you get it taken care of.
Yep. I was just going to say, Ashley beat me to it. Cool RV tools and gadgets.
Hand me that stuff. Okay, so this is mine. I've got a couple different versions here. So a lot of times customers go out and whether like this one would be more on a tow car, go and they hook up, get ready to leave, and nothing's working. You got no lights. A lot of things that happen is corrosion buildup, things like that. They actually sell these in kits. Not only do they sell them for the 6 rounds like this, they sell them in the 7s for people that have normal trailers and 5th wheels. They sell them with these nifty little tools that let you get inside any of those little connectors and get them nice and clean, adjust them where they need to be adjusted. Sometimes those little pins will move and not really make contact. I use these things constantly, all the time. Like that's the number one thing. Customer comes in, I check the fuses for the lights, everything is fine. That's the next place I move to. Electric clean, get in there, clean it out, make sure everything's nice and connected. You'd be surprised how many times it's something as simple as that.
Yep. Well,
Yeah,
even
that's what's
even
nice
this,
about those testers.
this Corrosion X is a water replacement and rust. So, I don't think most people realize how corroded both the male and female pins plugins, especially on the trailer side, when you let them sit unprotected out in storage for how long, and they rust and they start to get the little white scale stuff on it, and
Yep.
cleaning that stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah, just cleaning that stuff out.
All
Yeah,
right.
and then the next tool that we want to talk about is the water heater tank rinse. So as you can see in this video, our technician Terry, he's actually removing the anode rod,
Which is non-existent.
and which it's completely gone, as you can see in that video. He shows you a picture of the new anode rod, and when you're some people don't, they're not aware of these tank rinsers, and so that when everything disintegrates off the anode rod, it's falling to the bottom of the tank. And it's not just important to do if you have a Suburban water heater, but it's also just important to do it if you have an Atwood as well. So the Suburban water heaters are a steel tank with a porcelain coating. And so you want to get in there with the rinser and flush out all that sediment that's at the bottom of the tank. That eventually will eat through the porcelain coating and then damage your actual water heater tank. If you have an aluminum tank, which is an Atwood or Dometic now, because Dometic bought them, that's an aluminum tank with a plastic coating. You still get that sediment in the bottom, and so
It's calcium and sulfur.
It's calcium and sulfur, yeah. But and again, it's like we usually sell these Camco flush wands, exactly, and they work great. Sometimes we'll have customers that come in that live in the units full time, and they'll have like a rosacea or they'll have something on their skin, and we ask them, hey, do you live in your unit full time? And they're like, yeah. And like, hey, have you been, how, we try not to, how long have you had that rash? But we know that it's because they haven't been, like they haven't been washing out the tanks.
Yep.
And, so by the time that's mixing and taking a shower in it, as well as, fresh water sanitizing the tank. So it's make sure you're cleaning your tanks, your water heater tanks, and make sure you're flushing out your freshwater system.
Maintenance.
Well, and what a lot of people don't realize is when you drain your tanks, you still have 1.5 inches to 2 inches of water, because that drain valve is not at the very bottom of that tank. And
so some people think that the low point drain is going to get it all out.
Yeah.
And it's not. Like you're saying, it's a nipple that's within the bottom of the tank that's either plastic welded in or it's nut and compressed welded in, and that's still up there.
Yep.
Like you're saying, 3/8 to a 1/2 inch.
Yep.
So if you all clean a dirty fish tank,
my tool, and I don't have the fancy graphic, which I actually made because of my technical difficulties, is we have to winterize our coaches out here in the Midwest. And you can either do it by putting RV antifreeze in through the whole system, or what I like to do is I like to blow out the water in the whole system using compressed air. So I hook up an air compressor, dial it down to about 40 PSI, and then they make an adapter that will go into the city water fill that you can, hook that thing up, but it doesn't stay. So you either have to have somebody holding that all the time and somebody else running around. So I simply went out and I got an old garden hose, and I took the male threaded end here and I cut off about 1 foot of it, went and got a worm clamp and a air chuck. And so I hooked this to my city water fill, and it just sits there. And then I hook the air compressor up, dial it down to 20, turn it on. It pressurizes the system. Then I can go in by myself and just open every one of the valves. I don't think I have $3 in this. So it's to me, that's a fast way of winterizing, getting all the water out of your system. You still have to run the water pump because that city fill is going to bypass your pump. So you still will have water in the lines coming to the pump and out of the pump. Of course, drain all your other stuff. You run, the thing that people don't realize about winterizing is if you drain the tank and you drain the water heater and all the lines, you still have the toilet, the sprayer in the toilet. You have
shower,
ice maker.
That's a big one. That cracks all the time.
Oh yeah. And the black water tank flush. Very few people think about that. You got that connection on the side, and you got a hose that usually goes 2, 3, 4 feet to that black water tank, because they're not always right at the edge of the service center. So they're winterizing, they get rid of everything else, they forget about that hose. and that's got water. So that's becoming, a pretty big service item in the spring when you get back up. And all of a sudden it's like, well, where's that water coming from?
Yeah.
So, but luckily it's on the outside of the tank. We said be sure to add hashtag. Is it time for the mug giveaway? Ashley?
And there we are.
There we go. So we're going to randomly go through we call her Ashley White because we can't call her Vanna White.
And let's see. Oh, Larry Lucas. All right.
Congratulations.
Very cool.
Larry won. Congratulations. And just don't shoot the shaft at the riser into the tank. There you go. Don't shoot the shaft of that rinser into the tank. Oh, yeah. Okay. So what Larry's talking about is we had a question that came my way, and some guy said that he was, I think maybe it was Larry, that he was cleaning out the tank, and this came out.
Okay.
I don't know how that did it because mine won't do it. But
They crack.
They crack.
Over time, they crack and they will blow off. I've done
in
it.
there, and so we came up with a couple different possibilities. I told him to take the relief valve out at the top of the tank because you got a much bigger hole. Fill that tank up, and that thing will float. And he was able to get it. Somebody else said get one of those grabbers, the little shaft that's got the thing at the end. And so anyway, Larry got it out. All right. So then Terry says, I have a Clear Source Ultra 3 filters and a water softener installed on bores. How often do I need to replace the anode rod? And what he is talking about.
It just depends, Terry, because
you should still be servicing it at least once a year.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
it's how it looks.
Depending on how much you're using it, I would say take the anode rod out every 6 months, flush the tank out, replace the anode rod as needed. But it depends on how much you're using it. If you're full timing, if you're traveling around, if you're full time at one campground or at your home residence in it, and you can tell by the use of water that you're using, if you're jumping around campground to campground, you're getting all different types of waters and minerals and stuff in the system.
Look at that.
Now this
Dave,
one,
I'm going to bring my RV to your house and we're going to load it up.
This one happens to be the Nomad, and I do have the Clear Source one. It's a little higher up on the shelf. I wasn't sure which box it was.
Do you want to give us as well as the customers an idea on how to get all this cool stuff?
You just call them up and say, hey, I think that's really cool. You got to have some followers, though. But no, we did a video on boondocking. And so I called them up, and they sent me the Nomad and the Clear Source regular, like he said, the 3 filter ones.
Yeah.
And, we pulled water out of a pond and then went through a full-blown test of it. And tell you what, that was some very impressive stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
We had a famous musician come through here. I won't say his last name. His first name's Christian. And he had a $5,000 freshwater system put in. You could throw that thing in a dirty stream or whatever and drink right out of it.
You only get Giardia. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep. Every once in a while, fish get lodged in the filter. That's not a good thing. But no, and I would say too that Terry, it really depends. If you got that Clear Source thing, it's going to do 99% of the bacteria and a lot of the minerals, but you still are going to have the calcium and some other stuff in there, and I don't know what the actual metal mineral that eats that anode rod still going to do it. But and from what I was told by was it Suburban, is that yes, because the Suburban uses the anode rod and they have their own proprietary rod that they use, that you can get some stuff at the box stores that's not going to last as long.
Yeah. And they also have that combo rod too, that one that has the aluminum stuff in it.
Yep.
It lasts a little bit longer. So versus
but I
just
would say
straight magnesium.
I would say with your Clear Source filter product like that you're probably going to at least triple or quadruple the amount of time that you would have to replace that.
That's I told them every 6 months, just pull it out and just clean out the tank anyways, at a minimum once a year. But
Well,
if it needs it, it needs it.
If it needs it, it needs it. Yeah. Keep
Yeah.
one on hand. You know, usually they're like less than $20 or so. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, in fact, you got everybody makes them. Camco makes them. Atwood, or not Atwood. Suburban makes them. And
Yeah, don't install an anode rod in an Atwood tank.
No, I would not do that. But I even got this one at Ace Hardware in their tiny little RV section that they have. There was an anode rod in there. So, but anyway, yeah, it's going to take you a lot longer to replace it. You think about it too, though. How many people ever replace the anode rods in their home water heater?
How many people do any maintenance at their home, like appliances? It's not very common.
Yeah. I think once there are some people that every single year they call a HVAC guy and he comes out and he checks the furnace and, does all the little cleaning and electrode stuff like that. I know my neighbor does it. We do it. We've done it probably 2 or 3 times only because it's a newer home and it's still under warranty and we've got the appliance warranty. And if we don't do that, it voids the warranty of it. But, for the most part, I remember, I don't ever remember changing an anode rod until one time the water was so skunky at home and I did a little bit of research and went down there and pulled out this little string, at a home one. It's like, oh, okay. So anyway, let's
out and leak.
Larry,
Terry.
No, Larry won the cup. Make sure you email your mailing address to editor at rvtravel.com. I'm not sure if that got put up there or not. And we can take a few more. Copy that. He said, that's what our cameraman says that all the time. I have such a hard time. Copy that. Like, just talk normal. It must be a military thing. I think he's military. If it is, thank you for your service. So Larry says that. So we are out of questions. Let me pull up Cool Tools. Okay. So a couple things that, like I said, we got Paul here that is from Vintage RV Trailers. He's got some articles that are coming in. Look for that. We're going to try and get somebody. I talked to Kurt, the company that makes weight distribution hitches and so forth, because we had the question that came up about porpoising. And the guy said that he had a 1,000-pound weight distribution hitch, and the unit started porpoising. He went up to 1,200-pound hitch, and it stopped. And what could have caused that? He said. So I got, I did a little bit of research. I got a hold of a couple different companies. I got a really intelligent guy from Kurt that went through, and he said, first of all, the hitch does not create porpoising. That is not what's causing it. What's causing it is either something in the truck springs or the trailer springs, and most likely on a weight distribution. That's one of the things I wrote a series of articles called Gremlins. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, porpoising is just where you're going like Flipper. So
he's too young to know that show.
I know.
That was in my childhood.
Ben, Flipper, My Friend Flicka. Oh man, they don't make TV like that anymore. But anyway, one of the things that you'll notice, and I've done a lot of towing of heavy machinery, built my own house, had rental houses, borrowed skid loaders and things like that. And it was such a fine line where you put that weight on that trailer where you would start to get swaying or porpoising or anything like that. And there's a great video out.
Oh, we lost Dave.
You didn't lose me.
There you are.
But there's a great video out. We'll see if we can't find it where somebody showed the importance of weight distribution. They've got a little truck with a trailer behind it. It's on a treadmill.
Yeah.
And they move the weight up and back, and it all of a sudden.
Yep.
And that's one of the things we talked about is most people don't realize when they're loading their camper, they think they're doing exactly the same thing every single time. But you could put a couple hundred pounds extra weight up in front just by putting in 15 gallons of water that you didn't put before if it's up forward. So those are some of the things you have to look at.
And it's funny how people always will overload the front, thinking that the truck and the trailer will compensate for it instead of keeping it equal.
Yep, that is true. So with that, we got our. Did you bring your little trophy?
No, I forgot it at home with my air flush.
I want to thank the Academy.
I'd like to thank the Academy. That was our Academy speech music saying time is up, and so I would say. And last week I forgot to do it, and Dustin had one all ready to go. I got my. That's it. All right. 7 o'clock.
We'll see you guys
everybody.
next week.
Yep.
Thanks for everybody watching, and we'll see you guys next week. And if we don't see you between now and then, have a good Christmas.
Yep.
And
send those questions in.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's live stream. If you think today's content was helpful, let us know by hitting the like button or share it with a friend.
We'll be right back here next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We hope to see you then.